but that 200 is also goes towards additional transportation. We buy water from the free, and then there's a budget for that. The stands have to be constructed, and there has to be a proper reticulation from the tank to consume water. What this slide
Chairperson, may I take over while they find their okay. Here we have a slide of the procurement update and the awards per category. And in Gauteng, we had a very little delivery of construction stand for and articulation. In the Eastern Cape and in KwaZulu-Natal. Are you back online?
Can you hear us, Minister?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
I was trying to be you. As he's trying to continue on that, I need to inform the House that we did have a delay in the construction of the sites to put the tanks on, because when we started off, we did not anticipate that the level 5 and 4, the warehouses were closed. So when in those areas where we had not been quick off the mark, we found that we could not get the necessary bricks and cement to put up some of our tanks on. So there was a lot of complaints from our communities that the tanks are there, but they're not properly established, and that is due with the National Command Center to lift the regulation on the opening of warehouses. They subsequently did that, and all warehouses were available for us to buy the necessary cement and blocks. But that did cause a bit of delay in the installation of some of our tanks. Over to you, Sai.
Thank you so much. We also pictorially depict our interventions. In here, we're just showing the complexities associated with the delivery of tanks. Many people were wondering, why is this thing not done overnight? What we did in terms of procurement, we bought everything from the provinces, but the demand was more. So we had to mobilize tanks from Pretoria and Johannesburg. So it would take time for us to get into certain areas. What we're also trying to demonstrate in this slide pictorially is that, yes, the tanks, specifically in the provinces, but logistically, when you transport the 10,000 and 5,000, you can only load a limited number. So although we have been able to cover all the schools by and large, it really took a bit of time, which is relatively fast, within a period of a month to cover all the schools. There were, of course, challenges. The terrain and the topography in certain provinces were a bit of a problem, the distance between schools in the rural areas. And then we also received a lot of pushback from what we call business fora. Some of them are not legitimate because we were not finding some of the service providers in the central supply that. But at one stage, we even got the military. It took a bit of time because we had to disinfect some of the tanks, and some of the tankers arrived in schools outside the time, and that delayed us a bit. So to date, we had a target of 2,200 schools in use. We're talking a project completion of about 81%. Here we depict pictorially the provinces and the numbers that we've covered. You'll see Free State, Northwest, Mpumalanga long covered, Eastern Cape is almost there, Limpopo and KZN are lagging behind because really of the vastness of coverage in those areas. We use the same model What I do in the next slide, for interest, I will not go into each and every district. Progress for both tanks and tankers per district. If you use this example of Northwest, you can see in Dr. Ruth, 100% coverage, Nagamudiri, 100% coverage, Kenneth Kaunda, and we do so for all the provinces. In here, you can see almost everything is in the upwards of 80. Mopani and Capricorn is left behind a bit. Sikukuni is covered. What we have also seen is that, and we're engaging with municipalities, as and when you want to go to the schools, in certain areas, communities are stopping us to say, we also need water, fill our water tanks. So there is an absolute need for more water in various municipalities to assist the communities, because it makes a lot of sense when the communities are saying, you can't supply to schools when we don't have. So COVID-19 has increased the actual need for more water, and therefore, if you supply the schools and even the intervention minister that we have made from ourselves, it's absolutely not enough, and then we're engaging the municipalities to assist in that regard. So we do that for the rest of the provinces. I think the province that is still lag behind because of the vastness is KZN, and on a daily basis we provide progress in terms of those challenges. The challenges differ from one authority to another, and then we are engaging them to that effect. This is the Free State pictorially. What we're also doing, particularly in the Eastern Cape, we are not only connecting water to the taps, but we are connecting water for non-drinking purposes to rainwater harvesting, to the roofing system, so that post-COVID-19, the schools will continuously get water beyond the installation. This gives a number of the tankers that we have provided and delivered into the provinces for schools. As I indicate, the challenges that we're sitting with the tanks are same challenges that we're sitting with the tankers. And here we are providing the interventions in terms of what we need to do to deal with the challenges that I've indicated earlier. This includes providing additional tanks, also utilizing other water boards as well to assist with the provision of water. Over and above getting water from the municipalities, we are engaging water boards to also provide additional water so that we can roll additional water to the schools. I need to emphasize, because every schools have got water. There's no reason why most of the schools should not be open. We are augmenting and assisting with additional water to the schools. And in here, we also ideally provide on a continuous basis, where are we per district in terms of the delivery and the installations of our tanks. In eThekwini, this is where we are still lagging behind. 3 districts, Amajuba, eThekwini, and Umzinyathi are the ones that are lagging behind, and then we are demonstrating here the plans that we have put in place to expedite that. What we also do is provide a high-level project plan in terms of when are we intending to complete the whole exercise. We intend to complete the project where we will have done all the temporary installations and indeed hand over the project back to the Department of Basic Education. The last component, to rush through the presentation, deal with social facilitation. As I indicated, we make the provision for that. This deal with community liaison. We also make sure that there's customer satisfaction, monitoring, and evaluation, and we use our partners throughout the country that I'm listing here in those provinces to ensure that they run ahead of us so that we don't arrive in a community and in schools and the community does not know anything about that. Just in terms of a way forward, at the end of July, we'll continue tankering to schools and to communities to an extent possible. But what is important, and this is the key word, sustainability beyond our intervention is critical, and that is why we continuously engage our municipalities, because beyond our intervention, the municipalities must take over. That concludes the presentation from Water and Sanitation in terms of our interventions from both schools and Department of Water and Sanitation intervention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masai. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much. I need to indicate that we have learned a great deal from this attempt at resolving a crisis, and we have every intention of making sure that we will leave the installed tanks in place until such time as the municipalities have been areas. Of course, this is not sustainable because it does add added strain to what we're doing. But when we consider that there are people in the country, and we're only discovering the extent of this when we tried this out, there are some people who've been living without water for years. Pond is dried up, they go for miles and miles with their buckets on their heads. 25 years down the line in our democracy, it is unacceptable and it is a shame. But we have learned a great deal, and therefore we are going to keep this. We'll have a working relationship and MOU with NCOP to ensure that we can get the necessary support for making looked after, because it would be very difficult to do anything else after we've rolled out what we have rolled out. I think that is, yeah. When the chairperson introduced this matter, I think he indicated that this was necessitated by the very fact that the distribution of availability of water in this country is deplorable. We're still stuck in the old way in which water was distributed, with the rich getting the bigger share of access to water and the poorest of the poor out in the rural villages with no provision whatsoever. It will help us, all of us, to understand how we prioritize this and provide water to everybody. It's not something that they should be without for a day longer. So we would be led by discussions with yourselves and various other stakeholders about what we do beyond COVID about this. It has worked. It's worked tremendously. I'm extremely proud of the command center. I'm very proud of the program itself. And when the president came to visit the center, he was very chuffed, and so we were even more chuffed about the fact that we were able to roll out at the earliest opportunity that which was most urgent to our people at that time. We will now allow the chair to indicate to us whether we go to the second program or we take questions and answers at this point before we go to the second.
Can you please conclude the presentations, because we will do the discussion and the questions immediately after we had both the presentations that you are going to do.
Thank you, Chair. The next one then is human settlements. In the human settlements environment, we have now an acting DG by the name of Neville Cheney, because as you know, we borrowed the DG from human settlements to be the acting DG for water and sanitation. Mr. Cheney will take us through what it is that we have done. First of all, we submitted to the Command Council a memo on how we're going to deal with this matter, because the second thing that we taught about COVID is that there must be social distancing. There's no way you can have social distancing in an informal settlement. There's no way you can have an ambulance coming to pick up an elderly sickly person, to put up the tanks and proper sanitation in an informal settlements in the way that we have them now. We had to do something to make sure that they have equal rights to water, social distancing, and all of those things that are required by COVID. So we put together a team of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who have traditionally worked with us on the amendments are vast. And this is just a symptomatic developmental matter that we have to live with for developing countries will have sprawling informal settlements. We're still working on a plan on how to stop informality. But for as long as work is available in the city centers, in the metropoles, people will come looking for work and they will not find the necessary accommodation or will not afford the necessary accommodation. So informality grows. We discussed this matter in the cluster that deals with human settlements on a regular basis, and we've come to the understanding that we just have to plan for them. We've got to understand that they will happen. We just have to plan ahead of them. But in this particular informal settlements, which we called hotspots, and Neville Cheney will take us through what it is that we identified as hotspots and what it is that we're doing now to deal with those hotspots. But what we did in addition to that was in our regulations, we made very clear that we prohibit any invasion of land. But more importantly, we also prohibited any eviction of people to enable us to be able to enable us to roll out our support to these communities and to make sure that nobody is left out in this. Has not adhered to this regulation that is in our National Command Center guidelines or regulations. But for now, I'll give over to Neville Cheney to tell us what we're doing in the hotspots. They are all around the main metropoles of Johannesburg, Eastern Cape, Eastern Cape, I think there are about 2, and several in Johannesburg, several in the Western Cape. They'll all be well known to you, and some in KwaZulu-Natal. We don't have too many in Honourable Lucas's province. I think if we have an informal settlement, it's one. Perhaps we could start with that now that we're trying to curry favor with Honourable Lucas and see what we can do about that hotspot. But he'll take us through what we've been able to do with that, what plans we have for those hotspots and what we're going to do. He'll also indicate to you what we're doing to upscale and fast track our delivery of normal houses so we can move the people from informal settlements to the completed level 3. We really want to work 24 hours and we have the permission to do that so that we can do this as quickly as possible. The province of Western Cape and Gauteng are now experiencing their severest COVID incidents, and we are wanting to target those and make sure that we can move them into proper housing at the earliest possible time. Neville Cheney, would you like to take over now and take us through this presentation?
Please, Mr. Cheney.
Thank you and good morning, Minister, the Chairperson. Mr. Cheney is here in the room, however, his voice has disappeared.
Chairperson,
however,
the person who is talking is the current acting DG, and I'm sorry that I introduced Cheney, but he will continue. He is the current acting DG for Human Settlements.
Thank you, Minister. The presentation that follows seeks to provide the Council of Provinces with the, this is not only,
Click on it. Click on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. The presentation provides an overview of the strategy that was adopted and the plans that were implemented to counter the impact of COVID-19. These include, Chairperson, the need to mitigate and minimize the rate of infections and the spread through interventions in vulnerable households and communities. We focus specifically on informal settlements, hostels, inner city areas, and backyard areas. We focus specifically on these because we wanted to enable those households to be able to observe, to the extent that we enable it, physical distancing and social distancing, and where necessary, social self-isolation as required. Further to that, we saw it fit to assist those communities with sanitization as well as personal protection equipment. Chairperson, the last issue here was really to strengthen intersectoral and intersphere partnerships as we respond to the pandemic. In brief, the necessary interventions centered around three areas as I indicated. First, informal settlements. What did we plan to do? We therefore intensified the sanitization program. I'll get into those details. We also, in some cases, had to partially resettle households that were in very difficult circumstances. We also provided emergency housing solutions insofar as temporary residential solutions are concerned. The second area of intervention was around the overpopulated hostels, public hostels in particular, where we again focused on intensifying hygiene and sanitization method interventions, as well as partial relocation. Why? So that we reduce the congestion in those spaces. Lastly, we also had to pay attention to inner city areas, especially dilapidated parts of those cities. Now, again, we had to do the same, intensify hygiene and sanitization program to be able to improve the health living conditions in those regards. Of course, the responsibility was shared across the three spheres of government, and the funding that was used related to the Human Settlement Development Grant that goes to all the provinces, as well as the Urban Settlement Development Grant that is appropriated to the metros. In a nutshell, Chairperson, South Africa has just over 3,500 informal settlements. In these informal settlements, just under 1.8 million households reside in these. When you do the statistical projections, that gives us a population of just under 6 million people living in informal settlements. In this diagram, Chairperson, we provide you with first what has been available through the upgrading of informal settlements program, the grant that is available. You will see there's 2.4 billion rand that's appropriated in this financial year. And therefore, across each province, we then indicate how many of these informal settlements are then prioritized going forward. If I pick one, which is the most big challenge, if you look at Gauteng, Chairperson, on the far right of the screen, you will see that in Gauteng alone, there's just over 731 informal settlements. However, for the financial year at hand, 311 informal settlements are prioritized and funding is available for those. And we give you the breakdown for all the provinces in this regard. Further to that, Chairperson, we indicate what in each instance settlements that we've categorized. Some settlements, Chairperson, you will see in the first column A, they require to be upgraded in situ. The second column relates to B, which is informal settlements that can be incrementally upgraded, starting with providing essential services. Section C, that's the next column, relates to settlements that are in dangerous terrain, whether it's in a floodplain or under power lines, as the case may be, and they require to be relocated because they are in dangerous terrain. And therefore, we show you the breakdown across all the provinces. You will see, Chair, we've omitted Gauteng simply because the 700 plus informal settlements in Gauteng require a slightly different treatment insofar as what the metros do, what the province do, but the resources are available, Chair. Now, further to that, we confirm, Chairperson, that at the start, when we started, we identified and prioritized some 29 areas that required immediate intervention. You will see we codify here, if you look at the Gauteng part, you will see that in the city of Joburg, in Diepsloot, the plan was to resettle 1,348 households into the completed units in Riverside project, which is not far from Diepsloot. We also then record the progress in that respect, in that in this instance, the units are complete. There's a massive process of social facilitation to assist households that qualify to be then relocated into these. And again, you will see, Chairperson, we list each individual settlement. In Zalspruit, you will see that the plan has been to construct 1,400 temporary residential units in Zalspruit Extension 64. The contractor has been appointed. The social facilitation is underway. We anticipate that construction itself will ensue now that the social facilitation is done. We list the same process in Ivory Park, in Alex, and I'll come back to the progress that has been registered. And Chairperson, we continue to list all of these settlements across the metros in Gauteng. In this case, the next metro is City of Tshwane. When you go across to Eastern Cape, Chairperson, you will see in Buffalo City, the intervention was around Duncan Village, but also Zipunzane bypass in next to Gompo. Now, in those instances in Buffalo City, the plan was to provide temporary residential units. In Nelson Mandela Bay, the settlement that was identified was Muka Circle, where we needed to augment the water services, and that is where we could collaborate with the Rainwater Command Center to be able to provide that intervention. We proceed, Chairperson, in the Northern Cape. The settlements that we identified in Solplati, Springbok, and Pokwani required the augmentation of basic services, specifically water. That was completed, Chairperson. The same in Mpumalanga and Malaheni, the settlement was Iraq. The requirement was to provide additional water services. That was provided. So, Chairperson, we provide you the breakdown across the provinces. You will see in the Western Cape, in Limpopo, in KZN, Northwest, and the Free State. Chairperson, now, insofar as the mass sanitization intervention was concerned, you will see we focus specifically on all the metros. We focused on what provincial efforts would have been underway. You will see, Chairperson, as an example, on the far right of the screen, in Ekurhuleni, for example, the municipality undertook to sanitize and disinfect the hostels. Now, that process, that program is underway. Similarly, 5 informal settlements were identified for this purpose, and also the de-densification. Chairperson, I must confirm that different provinces, through their provincial joint operations committees, decided to intervene in different ways that were necessary on the ground. You will see in some cases, the municipality would provide water, soap, and those related requirements. And that picture there across the various provinces and the metros is what we're reporting on. Additional actions, Chairperson, that we had to undertake related to the entities of the department, which through the minister were required to put in place measures to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 pandemic. You will see, Chairperson, the guidelines for sectional title and committee schemes on how they conduct themselves during lockdown were issued. Similarly, there's current work to look at the possible rental relief in regulated social housing units. But Chairperson, further to that, overall, the sector-wide workplace guidelines for construction sites and employers were again issued. Chair, we also report that we, as the minister indicated, the question around evictions was dealt with in terms of the regulations, but also, Chairperson, the need to provide alternative accommodation to households in informal settlements, house hostels, and inner city is what we dealt with. Further to that, various implementing agents were directed to ensure that even as we do this work, we maintain the inclusion, the empowerment, as well as observing the necessary set-asides for targeted designated groups, women, youth, and people with disability, including military veterans. Chairperson, the command center, as Minister has indicated, has been the hub of focus around this work. We give you, Chair, the pictorial journey as to these settlements that we've prioritized and the types of solutions that have been delivered. You'll see here it's a case of straight line, Alex, and again, what is depicted on the right is the temporary residential units that have been procured to be delivered to in this instance. Further to that, you will see in this picture is the relocation of beneficiaries that qualified into permanent housing units at Elijah Bahai in Gauteng on the Western Chairperson, because at the point of the pandemic setting in, there were already housing projects that were matured, that were completed. It then offered the possibility to
Sorry, DG, just a moment. The host officials are requesting that you share the links, because in the direct broadcast, the information is not showing that you are now that we are seeing. It's not seen by the public. So can you share the links with our host officials so that it can also be broadcasted?
Thank you, Chair. We will attend to that. As I was saying, Chairperson, the relocations were undertaken into completed housing units. Now, sorry, the link is being attended to.
You may continue whilst they are busy sharing the link.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, the relocations or and allocations of beneficiaries into completed units was what was completed in Elijah Bahai in Gauteng. You will see the next slide demonstrates the work that is currently rolling out on Duncan Village in Buffalo City. And again, the temporary emergency housing units is what offered us the ability to rapidly deploy solutions to the households concerned. Now, further to that, we indicate the other intervention were in Ikemeleng next to Rodiport in the city of Joburg, where a settlement with families that were settled in tents for some time, and they were the subject of multiple evictions by the farmers, were then provided with emergency housing in this respect. Further to that, Chairperson, and I go to the following slide, which is now the intervention in Limpopo, in Zaneni, where Dalana Hostel was congested and the province agreed to then decongest the hostel and provide alternative accommodation in the form of temporary residential units. Chairperson, I want to confirm that at every, let's say, level, we had to review what is possible and what can be done in respect of all our interventions. And therefore, across the 3 levels, we indicate what we've been able to do and what was feasible, Chairperson. That's the report we are giving over the next 2 slides. Lastly, Chairperson, we confirm that the measures that we implemented include the provision of household level support. Further to that, in some provinces, as I indicated, we had some over 40,000 subsidy units that were already completed, if not near completion. And therefore, the minister's directive was to then ensure that those houses are then occupied by the rightful beneficiaries without delay. We worked with the Department of Social Development and other community-based organizations to locate and assist households in informal settlements. But further to that, the Social Development Department focused on ensuring that household food security is protected. Chair, in the metros, we also noted that several buildings that were either vacant were then identified, and people living in the streets were then accommodated so that they are also provided with shelter in the wake of the pandemic. Chairperson, we worked with as indicated, the Housing Development Agency, the CSIR, to identify, and that work is continuing, Chairperson, high vulnerability zones within informal settlements, hostels, and inner cities. And also, Chair, we confirm that the evictions of households was placed on moratorium. The regulations provided for that. Similarly, we also witnessed instances where there would have been opportunistic land occupation, and therefore municipalities themselves had to be able to respond together with law enforcement entities. Chairperson, we, through the ministry, established a working relationship with the South African Human Rights Commission so that there's always an independent view as to the work that we do. Members would recall that at some point it was projected as if the department was seeking to forcefully resettle people, whereas that was far from the truth. The point is there's intense social facilitation, community engagement, agreement about delivering these emergency housing solutions. And therefore, the work with the civil society organizations has proven very useful and also instructive in this respect. Chairperson, I conclude to point out that while we do this work, we've also come to the realization that a sustained working partnership with community-based organizations, civil society organizations, becomes central to the work that we do, and that has been reinforced even in this work. Lastly, the monitoring that we undertake to ensure that there's proper allocation and the installation of water and sanitation interventions, that's what is in place. Further to that, even with ourselves, the information and communication around which settlements, communities, what is then the do's and don'ts, that has also been reinforced. Over the medium term, we are accepting that we are having to accelerate the upgrading of informal settlements. We are happy, Chairperson, that we have a dedicated grant for both provinces and the metros to attend to this urban reality that there is urban growth, and therefore informal settlements are a huge part of our urban response going forward. Chairperson, perhaps I should stop here and thank you for the opportunity to brief the committee. Thank you, Minister.
Chairperson, we remain.
Minister, we will give you around about 5 minutes just to conclude the presentation so that we can start with the questions and discussion.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I wanted to say on the matter of providing temporary shelter, I think that we have learned that we can get more out of that and rapidly de-densify the informal settlements. But there's always the cost element to it. What do we do with the temporary shelter by the time we provide formal shelter? These are discussions we'll be having with you. But I was very chuffed to find that at a recent IMF discussion in New York, we were used as an example of what is possible to take people out of poverty into decent shelter. And they used the example of what we did for the Rodiport Ikemeleng's community. This is a community that used to be farm workers for the farmers in the area, and they had been pushed off as development grew around the area, and they were housed in tents. We got to know about them, and within 2 weeks we were able to provide them with houses for each family there, and it was a heartwarming event to be there to give those houses away. And this is what is internationally used as best practice from recognition by the IMF. But we still could, this is a trial and error situation we're finding ourselves, but we are also finding solutions that we could use in the short term to long term to solve some of our congested areas. They are not the best place where a child should grow up. We are continuously very concerned about them, and it might take some discussion around the financing of it, but we think that the solution that we have found in this particular crisis should be the one that we use. Invest right now in temporary shelter and make sure that as the economy picks up, we use this as a cornerstone of our economy, because construction invariably provides any economy with the necessary boost. We saw that in 2010 when we were building the stadia, and we can see it now if we use the concept of a post-war recovery that was used in Europe, called the Marshall Plan. We intend to put together some kind of Marshall Plan for the next in the next year or so to ensure that we are able to concentrate on providing. But the rest will come out of our discussions with yourselves. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to make this presentation.
Thank you very much, Minister. I just want to say to the members, the Minister and the team is very much within the time, because they didn't start a team exactly. They started around about 20:10, and they are very much within the time. So I'm mentioning it because there is some people that feel that possibly the time of the presentation was longer, but it was definitely not. We have identified hands. Can we just use the raise your hand function? No one shouted at me. That is why we have progressed. Let us use the raise your hand function. Can we speak? We will take around about 10 questions and then start again.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I start?
You are identified.
Thank you very much. My apologies not for having my camera on, but I do have problems with my computer, and I can't upload the. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister, for the briefing and information today. And I hear what you say about it can't be business as usual with the rich people having water and poor people not having water. And yes, indeed, we can't have this situation in 2020. However, there is instances where both the rich and the poor and the middle class and the working class suffer because especially municipalities are not functioning properly. Now, I'm going to give you 2 examples. The one is Mangoom, and I'm sure you're aware of this, where there's ongoing dispute between Bloem Water and Mangoom. On the one hand, there's overcharging by Bloem Water, but Mangoom is actually not honouring their settlement agreements. But the short and the long and the effect of this is Bloem Water is actually now considering reducing water supply, and this will affect everybody in Mangaung. So my question regarding Mangaung is, and I know this is a sub judice matter, but is the minister aware of this situation in Mangaung, and when will we see a situation where this dispute is no longer there and residents can get their water? The other one in the Free State, especially, is in Machabeng. Now, last year, I heard you speaking about you did consult with the Auditor General. Last year, Machabeng lost, listen to this, 150 million rands of water owing to leakages. And 20%, only 20% of the grants for water infrastructure was spent. Now, the taxpayer is saying, we are paying taxes for one, to receive services, but also as part of a social responsibility towards especially the poor. But how is it possible that the municipality loses 150 million rand and only spends 20% of its grant for water? So my question to the minister is, regarding Mangaung, when will we see this dispute being handled and finalized? And Machabeng, what is the department doing to assist municipalities to have the infrastructure spent, and especially the leakages being stopped in these municipalities? Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, members, I will have to apply the 3-minute rule because we cannot make speeches here now. We must ask questions. Honourable Maleka, you will be the second one.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson, and welcome the briefing from the Minister. Minister, I want to check on the state of water services board and challenges of service delivery. Minister, in the light of the recent media reports regarding allegations of the endemic corruption in some of the water services boards, example, Amatole and Lipili water boards, how has this affected the capacity of department to roll out the provision of water and sanitation during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially to poor communities? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Maleka. Honourable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the Minister. Minister, the mess that we call Mfuleni is threatening our water suppliers once again. You called in the army to help. You got Rand Water to help. You got Urwater to help, and all have come and gone and left the situation pretty much as bad as it has always been. There have been some good gains, but nowhere near enough. And unfortunately, the lockdown has stalled all progress. If only Mfuleni was the only offender. There are municipalities across the country in contravention of the National Water Act. For one, a J of the Act confirms that these contraventions, whether willful or negligent, are criminal acts. Furthermore, our pollution of water sources is affecting our neighbors, and Lesotho and Namibia will soon be threatening us with actions. Minister, we need a proper plan. We need a long-term situation. Minister, daar is definitief 'n ding in die drinkwater. We are failing our children. What is your department's solution to this national and soon to be international crisis?
Thank you, Honourable Boss of Members. I will ask those officials to mute
Honourable,
because you are saying will we have enough time, and then we give time and we just make speeches.
Honourable Chair is the Chief Whip from Gauteng. Honourable Chair,
sorry,
my hand button is not working. Chief Whip from Gauteng, I wanted to ask a question.
We'll put you on the list.
Thank you.
Put you on the list. Honourable Nita.
I also want to ask a question, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. My question to the Minister, Chair, is that...
Sorry, Honourable members, I have seen all of you that raised your hand, and those that sent me checks, I have seen Zanda Mela Mtiwane, I have seen them. Allow me to chair the meeting, please.
Thank you again.
Honourable Nita.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Honourable Makalse, I've seen you. I've seen you. You are on the list.
Chairperson, have you seen me?
Honourable members, can those that are not speaking
Have you
mute
seen
their
me,
mic?
Chairperson?
Honourable Makalse, can you please give us a chance to get order into the meeting? Please allow us to get order into the meeting. Honourable members, those that are not on the platform speaking, please mute your mic so that we can hear what other people are saying. We take note. Some of you are sending us through chat the fact that you cannot raise your hands. Others like Kumalo have said it. So almost all of you, we are having you, we are seeing you. Allow the meeting to flow, please. I'm just requesting. Allow the meeting to flow. Honourable Nita, you may continue.
Can they send me a copy of the master plan?
Honourable Nita, do you have a problem? We will come back to you, Honourable Sileku. Is there a problem?
Chair, good morning.
Yes, Honourable Sileku. Nita, we will come back to you.
Oh, thank you very much for the presentation by the Minister. Minister, I see that in terms of your statement that you released in terms of densification, that you only targeted metro areas for reblocking. Are there any plans to reblock informal settlements in non-metro areas? If so, what are the relevant details, and has the department allocated additional funding to the Western Cape for their reblocking plans as part of the COVID-19 response plan? Thank you very much. That's the question for this round.
Yes, if there will be a second round, because everyone is indicating they want to speak. Honourable Sheikh. Honourable Sheikh.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes,
thank you.
Honourable.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for the detailed presentation and the progress that you provided on interventions and projects that were announced in April this year to expedite the construction of more housing units throughout the country. Minister, in terms of the presentation, you mentioned required set-asides, but in terms of allocating houses for military veterans in all provinces, and Limpopo in particular, what progress has there been in this regard? And is there a special budget allocated for this? And the number of housing units to be allocated. Minister, my second question relates to water. When you visited Mutse in February this year, you made a pledge of 143 million towards drought relief in the area. And this was to address the long-standing challenges of water in the Sekhukhune district municipality. But with regards to Mutse, in addition to the 5 water tankers and the 20 water tankers that were donated, you assured the community of Mutse that as an interim emergency intervention, there will be additional water tanks to ensure that all the residents have water, prioritizing not only schools, but the elderly, the police station, and the Philadelphia hospital that serves the community. Minister, if you can indicate what progress has been made in this regard. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Sheikh. If Honourable Nita, are you back?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's network. Thank you very much. Chair, what I would like to know from the Minister is that he has identified 127 land parcels to resettle the communities that are in extremely dense informal settlement. So what I would like to know, are there some that have already been settled? If yes, in which provinces and which townships? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable.
Sorry.
Honourable Matevula.
Nakhensa Deputy Chairperson. Minister, swikolo leswi landzelaka eka masipala wa Giyani a Mopani a Limpopo swi hava mali ende vana va tlhelele exikolweni. Edward Homu Giba Maslati, Asani Mninginisi, Atlani, Muyeshe, Atama, Ipabukile, Mohau, Ndidani, Shomena, Ngatsani, Unanani, Takula, Uyeti, Usizi, Babamu, Onoka, Langutelani, Baleni, Komanani, Balati, Kwezu, Mapusha, Komo, Wakada, Ranzu, Navahlawe. Swi hava mati na ta swi va ku vana va thelele xikolweni sweswi ene ku hava mati na ta swi va ku ndzawulo yi yime kwihi hi mhaka leyi.
Honourable Matebula, thank you. Honourable Fayela. Fayela. Baba. So we will go to Honourable Gillian. We'll come back to Honourable Fayela.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Chair. My question to the Minister has to do with the evictions. Since there is a moratorium on evictions in the Western Cape, as you are aware, Minister, evictions are taking place on a daily basis. My question is, what will your department do to assist our communities in distress during this pandemic, who is humiliated in this code by the city of Cape Town and other municipalities? The unforeseen incident of last week, I think, was the turning point in this eviction that is taken place in the Western Cape. Please, Minister, we can't every time have the minister coming to this province, but when you leave, it continues. So what plans do you have to stop this type of evictions that are happening in the Western Cape? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Gillian. If Honourable Fayela is not back yet, we will now go to Honourable Arnold. Are you back, Honourable Fayela? Yes, please. You may continue.
Thank you so much, ma'am. First of all, allow me to thank the Minister for her presentation. It is very informative. But, Madam, taking water to school is a very good move. My only concern is that if you take water to school and no water in the community around school, that causes a problem. I want to plead to the minister that they must make sure if there's water in school, of which is a good thing, they must balance it up. Also, they must have water in the community around school, so that there will be no vandalization. You know, the people around school, if there is water in school, they end up breaking into school and get that water. So I'm asking the Minister, Madam Chair, to make sure that around school, they must also have water.
Thank you, Honourable Fayela. Honourable Arnold.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to the Minister and then also all the members of the National Council of Provinces and then also the officials. Minister, we all are aware that water, sanitation and hygiene are key elements and essential in fighting COVID-19. Communities in townships, informal settlements, backyard dwellers and homeless are severely impacted due to their living conditions and lack of access to water and sanitation. And we all know also that the provision of water tanks is a temporary solution. I just want to mention this, and I'm referring to the Western Cape, and especially now I'm taking this example of Cape Metro, where there was a priority list of 15 informal settlements that was identified for the provision of water tanks. But there was now only 4 informal settlements. And this is a concern for me because most of the informal settlements, like your Congo in Mfuleni, your Marikana in Milnerton, Marikana in Wallasdene, Nakandla in Wallasdene, Juk in Yanga, all those informal settlements is not part of the priority list. And the other question is, there is informal settlements that are due to density
and space constraints, the majority of those settlements, there is no space for water tankers. So we want immediate intervention in those informal settlements, and there is a list of those informal settlements. If you can please intervene in the Western Cape, especially seeing that the Western Cape is the epicenter of COVID-19 and the dire conditions under which our people are staying in informal settlements, backyards, and yeah, thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Arnold. Minister, I think we will continue with the question so that when you respond comprehensively. And because I said at first, and I think we can take all the questions and then you respond comprehensively. We'll now give to the Honourable Kleinans. Honourable Kleinans.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. Okay, I don't know how to get my camera working, but you can hear me?
I hear you, you are audible.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you to the Minister for the presentation today. However, I do have a few questions for clarity. We see in many places in the country, Kwakwa is a prime example of a large number of JoJo tanks being delivered to the area, but most of these tanks cannot be used because they are not properly installed and they don't have taps, and there's a huge challenge with the delivery of water to these tankers. We see the same thing in Tabachweu, we see it in Spekboom community, we see it in the Overberg, we see it in the Central Karoo. So I would just like the Minister to give us clarity, please, on how, because during the presentation we were told that the municipalities themselves must see to the installation of these JoJo tanks. Now, a vast amount of money was spent by government on procuring and obtaining these JoJo tanks, but if they cannot be used, then it really is defeating the purpose. What pressure can be put onto municipalities to ensure that these things are made usable? Related to that as well is the fact that in Kwakwa, Sedibeng Water was appointed as the implementing agent there. So what responsibility do they have to ensure that these JoJo tanks are made usable so that the community can benefit from this procurement by government? Also, what we see in Kwakwa is that there's a huge challenge with the funding of the water tankers. There are now just over 100 water tankers, but Mulitiapufung Water, the entity, is busy paying contracts for many of these tankers. So I'd just like to know, the funding, the disaster funding, was intended for 134 water tankers. Why is the entity saddled with paying for this, and which they cannot do? So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Kleinans. Honourable Mabatu Makause.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. Minister, it looks like clean water, access to clean water remains a dream in this democratic South Africa. You assured the people of Maluti intervention from your office, and they haven't seen that. Their water tankers, some of their waters are drawn from filthy rivers that are flowing, and they are fed by black people. Black people are made to consume such filthy water. Pokwani in the Northern Cape is also a victim of such filthy water. What are you doing as a government of the day to make sure that our people have access to clean water? Your interventions are not working as of today. Now, the municipalities in Gauteng evict our people who are on level 3 of COVID-19. What are you doing to make sure Gauteng specifically? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Makause. We will now go to Honourable Dangor.
Chairperson, thank you very much for allowing me to ask a question to the Minister. Minister, thank you for the presentation. There is a bit of a challenge, Minister. The challenge is that large metros, building systems have been found to be faulty and incorrect. Has the Ministry looked at how to correct the system? And in the previous Johannesburg municipality, for example, gentrification, and in Cape Town, gentrification has been the order of the day to balance the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Dangor. Honourable Zandamela. Zandamela.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Chairperson. On the weekend of the 14th of June, more than 100 families in 123 in the Malahleni in Mpumalanga were evicted, shacks demolished by municipal public safety officers, despite regulations stating clearly that no evictions should take place during the national lockdown. Who authorized these evictions, and what plans have been made to assist those families who are now without homes? Thanks, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Zandamela. Honourable Nana.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Honourable members, some amongst the many key responsibilities of a Minister of Water Affairs and Sanitation is the provision of water to South Africans and prudent management of this precious resource. Minister, it is well documented that we are a water scarce country, and this is exacerbated by a crippling drought experienced by many parts of South Africa. Minister, in this regard, Nelson Mandela Bay is a case in point. It is fast approaching day zero. As of 1st July 2020, the majority of storage dams supplying the metro were at a critically low level. For instance, Koga Dam was standing at 7%, Impofu Dam was standing at 16%, Grondal Dam was standing at 29%. The average water that is left for Nelson Mandela Bay is about 18%. The DA in Nelson Mandela Bay has on numerous instances written to you with proposals to avert a rather disastrous situation. We raised the issue of fixing the Sundays River Canal, which collapsed in 2018, and we also raised the lack of capacity by the present administration to spend allocated funding. Now, my questions to you, Minister: can you furnish us with reasons as to why the rebuilding of the Sundays River Canal has not yet been completed? When will work resume and be completed? Secondly, what interventions, if any, has your department made to ensure that the incapable Nelson Mandela Bay administration spends its allocation and push back the looming day zero, which is really fast approaching? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Nana. Honourable Matiwane.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. First of all, let me first appreciate the presentation done by the Minister and the team and the good work that they have done across length and breadth of the country with regards to water provision tankers. I think that the kind of support and the immediate response they provided cannot go unnoticed. However, Chair, I think we must agree with the Minister that this is a temporary measure, the provision of tanks. And I don't want members of Parliament to always refer this to by name, either called George or tank. This is provision of tanks. we don't want to specify a brand name by its name. Just provision of tanks. It's a temporal measure to alleviate the situation we find ourselves under. The question is, what is it being done now with municipalities responsible and the department to make sure that the provision now becomes permanent post this intervening period? Well, that for me is very key, because we cannot continue having a similar situation wherein we have to intervene in the manner we have done. The second point is on the ISU, informal settlement upgrading, which Human Settlement has presented very well about it. The issue here, what kind of protocol and agreements that provinces should have with municipalities to ensure that the availability of land is possible, because you'll be forced, Honourable Minister, that in areas where there are densely populated areas like Dagan Village, you have to get a land parcel available. And that may require that specific provinces enter into some form of agreements and or protocols so that those land parcels are availed. And the critical question there, given what we're currently discussing about expropriation without compensation, is that some of the land owners within the urban edge, those who own land in well-located areas, may start using this opportunity because we're under pressure and sell land in exorbitant price tags. How are we going to avoid that? So that our municipalities do not enter into such, and provinces do not enter into such overstated price tags for some land parcels. Remember, expropriation talks about expropriation of land for public good, and building houses is but one of public goods as enshrined in the Constitution, in the founding provisions of the Constitution. Yes, the last point is about where I come from, Butterworth. Butterworth, and as part of Amatol, is still faced with drought. The minister has been there several times. The department through its DG or acting DG has been there for quite some time. Amatola Water and other stakeholders have been there for quite some time. Now the question is, given the drought that is there any possibility of resuscitating the old project which was stalled way before this current administration, so that water link between Tsomong, Namakwa, and Butterworth is revived? Is there any plan to go back to that? Because the issue of tankers is going to be a thing of the past, and Butterworth is going to come again on fire if we don't provide a lasting solution there. Thank you very much. I think on issue of Matola, what I'm covered.
Honourable Rider. Honourable Rider.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm just trying to find all the right buttons on the screen at the moment. Chair, thank you very much, Minister, and thank you. Minister, the desire to own land is currently the subject of many debates in this House and around the country. Central to this issue is the security of tenure. So everyone wants a space to call their own and that they can invest and build the best life that they can afford for their families. But security of tenure is currently under threat, and land grabs are happening around the country. Specifically now during lockdown, there seems to have been a flare-up, and our police are unable to control it and are unable to protect citizens from thugs who are threatening to burn their homes and kill them. Before we get held up, let me speak about the specific invasion in Elandsfontein, where South Africans of all race groups are being threatened, just in Midvaal on the border with Johannesburg. So too many municipalities, like the Solplaatje municipality, for example, seem unable or unwilling to manage the mushrooming illegal occupation. They react too slowly and thereby incur obligations to relocate, or they end up tacitly allowing settlements. Minister, your department enables people to own their own houses. The right to legally own property is a fundamental principle of our constitutional democracy. What is the department doing to ensure that every South African across the country who owns their own land or is given land has their rights protected and is given security of tenure, and they will not be bullied off their land by criminals, thugs, and land thieves? Thank you, Minister.
Ryder, I just want to know whether that drat loose is working, that is there on your shelf. I see you've got a nice drat loose there. Honourable Khumalo, you will be next.
Whoops. Thank you very much.
Honourable Khumalo.
Thank you very much, Chair. I firstly would like to thank the opportunity given, but secondly thank the Minister for her presentation. I must attest that indeed I've seen the community that she refers to of Rodi Port. I've seen them in difficult times, and now I've seen them currently after intervention when their lives has indeed changed for the better. Two quick issues which I regard them as legal issues. One, as we want to decongest, resettle people and so on, have you taken into account the issues of, amongst others, the issues of foreigners? Because in some of these settlements, many of the residents are foreigners. What do we do with them? Do we resettle them temporarily, or what's the situation there? That will go with the question around evictions, because once you say moratorium on this, you see a lot of land grabbing. Is there any provision in law that has been put in place to ensure that at least we prevent land grab? Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, that's muting and unmuting is a problem. Honourable Makause, we will come back to you. Let us just give one or two other people. Honourable Christians.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. My question is to the Minister about the school water tanks. Now, access to water and sanitation was identified as a key requirement for schools to reopen during the pandemic. 2,634 schools required this intervention. Hence, 600 million tender was issued for this purpose. Yet many schools across the country are still waiting for JoJo tanks to be delivered and installed. Where they are delivered, however, there is no water to fill them. The Malangeni JSA School in Lusikisiki and Dagani, JSA School in Port St. John's have not received tanks. Bodweni, JSS in Flagstaff and Bota Segao, JSS in Lusikisiki have received tanks, but unfortunately, no water. Some tanks delivered across the country are of inferior quality, so much so that they collapse when they are filled with water. Why is this the case when such a huge contract has been awarded and yet learners' lives are still at risk of contracting COVID-19? Isn't your department supposed to monitor the deliverables of this contract? My second question, I would like to latch on to the Northern Cape issue. Now, according to the presentation that was given to us, the program implementation plan shows that the settlement plans have not been approved as yet, most of them. And it also shows in the Northern Cape that North Pacific. Now, at the beginning of the year, President Cyril Ramaphosa in January, he was in Calville, in Kimberley, in the Northern Cape. He spoke about the Salt Plaatje municipality that is collapsing. He spoke about the mid-income housing that was supposed to be done there, and he said he chastised both the mayor and the municipal manager. Now, what has been the minister's advice to Salt Plaatje municipality in respect of this specific land matter, for which an interdict has so far been awarded to halt the construction on the land until the matter returns to court?
Thank you, Honourable Christians. Honourable Mtetwa. Honourable Mtetwa, are you there?
Yes, Chair. Yes, I'm here, Chair.
You may continue.
Yes, Chair. Chair, thanks for the opportunity to speak, Chair, even though I have got a flu. Minister, at some point, no less than 10 billion was owed to Water Board by over 30 municipalities, with the Matibeng municipality owing more than all other municipalities. So my question to you, Minister, is how much of this money has been recovered, and what are the payment arrangements entered into with the board. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Mtetwa. Honourable Baha. Honourable Baha.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Chairperson, mine is around the question of evictions. We have seen evictions happening throughout the country. I don't want to dwell onto the narrative that there's only one province or that is doing the evictions. We've seen demolition of brick and mortar houses in the south of Johannesburg, and there was nothing said about it. We've seen evictions in a Ante municipality. There was nothing said about it. Now, I want to put a question across, Chairperson, that goes to address the issue of evictions on a national basis, not necessarily targeting any specific province. The fact that this is happening, I need an explanation of saying, how do you deal with the land invasion when you can't evict, when you say there's a moratorium on both land invasion and eviction? Because for me, I think that's what the crux of the matter is. How do you balance the two? No land invasion and no eviction in line with the regulations of COVID-19. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honourable Makause, I will give you, because your sound was very bad.
Thank you, Deputy House Chairperson. Am I audible enough?
Very much, very visible also.
Thank you so much. Honourable Minister, it looks like clean water in this democratic South Africa is a dream. The people of Maluti Apofu saw your interventions. You went there to them, you spoke to them, but they did not see the real intervention from your office. Water tankers are procured currently in Maluti Apofu. They are stored at the councillor's house because there's no proper infrastructure to go and put them. The people of Maluti Apofu, still today, there is no water. Even in some areas where there is water in those water tanks, the water there are drawn from the flowing rivers, where animals are also helping themselves into that water. And that water is fed to black people. Our people are forced to drink such water. And that includes Pokwani in the Northern Cape. So what are you doing? Can you, Minister, also consume that water? Or is that water only for black people in squatter camps or in rural areas? I've spoken also about the evictions in Gauteng, a ANC-led municipality. What actions are you going to take relating to those evictions? Because there is a moratorium relating to COVID-19 that there can't be evictions. Our people are without land, our people are without proper sanitation and housing in this democratic South Africa. Thank you, Minister.
Sorry. Honourable Dodovo, you will be the last one to speak.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. Let me start by joining the queue to applaud the work of the Minister in terms of attending to the issues of water and sanitation, as well as human settlement in the whole country. I think this is quite commendable, and we are proud of you, Honourable Minister, with the work that you are doing. And in the same vein, let me take this opportunity to say to you that in the Northwest, you must go and really assist that particular province, more especially in the light of what happened yesterday, that your colleague in the human settlement, Honourable Kehakule, has passed on. And please support that particular province to ensure that we continue to provide human settlement to those communities. My question relates to your plan that you adopted last year, a very, very beautiful master plan to address the issues of water and sanitation. My question is, how does that link with the sixth objective, the objective number 6
of the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, and in that particular line, how do you connect that with the the district development model that has been adopted? Because it is important that in your work you continue to work with the municipalities, and how do you connect that with the district development plan? Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dodovo. I gave you deliberately last because you were chairing the committee. I hope you understand that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we will now give over to Minister and her team for responses and for the responses and for conclusion of this first session of the interaction. Over to you, Honourable Minister. I'm sorry to have taken all the questions, but I wanted the discussion to flow as easy as possible.
When we raise the question, Chairperson, when we raise
the person that I tried by all means to make sure that everyone speak, and you didn't indicate in any way that you want to speak. So can we allow the minister to respond, please? I think there is a session that is going to continue after this one. Can we allow the minister to respond? And I'm sorry for that.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. May I proceed? Honourable Lucas, may I proceed?
Minister, please proceed.
Yes. I just wanted to start off by saying that there must have been a huge mismatch in our communication, because the letter and the briefing we were requested to make here, as I read, is a ministerial briefing on progress made on measures to provide water and sanitation and address human settlements related challenges to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. Are you with me, Chair? So what we did was to tailor our presentation to indicate how we are responding to the current pandemic. However, I do note that there are other questions here that are far beyond what we were asked to do. May I therefore say that to those people who've asked those questions, we will still be coming to the NCOP, and we will still be discussing the broader spectrum of what it is that we're doing. That which we're doing beyond COVID-19 would be, first of all, to introduce to you what Honourable Dodovo has indicated is our plan. It was indicated that we have no plan. We do have a plan, and you might not see it from there. Can you see it, Chairperson? We have a wonderful plan. It's a kind of plan that led us to be nominated as one of the top 20 leading countries in the management of water. And we will take time to take you through what it is that is contained in the plan and what it is we're going to do as a Department of Water and Sanitation about all the matters that have been raised, which are outside of the prescripts that were given to us by the NCOP about today. Being discriminatory without offending anybody, to deal with those matters that we had prepared for and come here to do. And the others, we have taken note, and we will welcome any further notes that will come from the NCOP to indicate, to indicate how we can move forward. But we would be very grateful to have this kind of session to discuss our holistic plan, where most of the other things will fall into.
Thank you, Minister. Continue, please.
Now, I would like to start off with Honourable Klute, and just because it is the first, not because he was the first one, but because it's the first here on the papers I have. We are managing the TIF between Bloem Water and Mangaung, and it's an ongoing matter. which has also included some litigation. So it would be difficult for me to preempt what the outcome is going to be. But we will attend to it immediately so that even as the TIF is going on, the people in the area are able to be provided with the necessary water. And would like to thank Honourable Klute for bringing this to our attention. We will attend to it immediately. The other one is by the same person, the possibility of corruption and the municipality losses or losses from municipalities not getting their revenue and the municipalities not paying revenue to us. That is contained in our master plan. That's a long-term thing, which is not directly related to what we're doing now in this pandemic. It's a big problem that we have. The indication here is that Machabeng is particularly targeted. I mean, it is particularly indicated to us as one of those municipalities. We will look at that. And when we deal with that, Chairperson, it would be important perhaps that you invite both ourselves and COCTA. Most of the questions that are asked to us are municipal related matters. And dealing with the NCOP, it would be absolutely essential that all members of the NCOP know what is the relationship between what we provide and the municipalities. Know what it is that is the legal responsibility of water and what is the legal responsibility of municipalities, because that is exactly what they're dealing with. But in terms of that, of loss of revenue, and we have a plan to deal with that, and we will come back to that at another time. We have a question from Honourable Maleka, talking about corruption and how this has affected the service, the provision of water. Corruption is something that we have decided right from the beginning we're going to deal with, because when we came into this environment, we were told in no uncertain terms, both by the Minister of Finance and everybody else who cared to say anything about this environment, to say it is a corrupt environment. We identified that the best way to be able to deal with this and create an even a leveling field so that everybody has equal access to water and is treated fairly is to deal with the pandemic of corruption. And we're doing so against a great deal of resistance. But that is the nature of corruption. And so we have taken on the support of various institutions in dealing with this. We've taken on the support of the public protector. We've taken on the support of the NPA, and we are dealing with all law enforcement agencies to assist us in this matter. We will be providing a full briefing to the NCOP on this once the cases are over. Honourable Maleka, I hope that answers your question. Yes, it does affect the provision of water, and that is our biggest concern. But what is, we have identified those areas that need water urgently, and we have provided, in line with what the municipalities have identified, water tanks to all those areas. Some of the members here are pointing out areas that do not have water. Those would not have been matters that have been brought to our attention by the municipalities, but we've taken note of them. We will investigate the matter and see how we can assist the municipality. We are not alone in resolving this problem. We work with the municipalities, including the district's municipalities, in everything that we do. The identification of sites, the putting up of the stands, all those are the responsibility of the municipalities. There are members who have said that there are tanks there, but there is no water and there is no stand there. And it is quite possible that the delay has been caused by the fact that for a while the supply of cement and bricks was not allowed in terms of our requirement, but it has long since been lifted. It is possible now to find brick and mortar and cement to put up those stands. So those members, please, are requested to get in touch with their municipalities and find out why those tanks have not been mounted. Our job was to provide the tanks. Our job was to provide water on those stands after they have been mounted. And then we have a question from Boshoff, and that is about the VAL problem and Mfuleni. We are dealing with the matter of Mfuleni, and I'm sure the community of the VAL will have told you, Honourable Boshoff, that I am there every second Monday trying to solve this problem. This is a long-standing problem that has accumulated over years, that will not be solved by one minister or a few months on the job. But what we have done is dedicated ourselves to solving that problem. Anybody named Mfuleni and in the VAL will attest to that. We now have a fully functional panel of advisors to the minister dealing with sanitation. And they were with me in a meeting with the business community in the VAL to try and see how we can solve the problem. We have a plan. We will bring the plan to the NCOP. It's actually a very good plan that we have worked on together with the stakeholders there, and we will be putting it into effect as soon as Cabinet has approved it. But we do have a plan dealing with it with the community there, and we are empowering the local engineers in Mfuleni. They're called METSI, together with the community there to try and clean up that area. As you indicated, that problem is not just a problem of the VAL. It is a spillover effect of all the sewer that has come from various provinces, 4 provinces in all, that comes from aging infrastructure, and there is no way we can not emphasize this. Our infrastructure is a big problem. It is aging infrastructure combined with the fact that we do not have the kind of infrastructure that will reach every household in this country. That is the legacy that we have inherited. There is a question, I think it is from somebody called Christians, I'm not sure. What about the schools that have not been given tanks? No, in the Northern Cape, she's talking about the Northern Cape. What about the schools that have not been given tanks? And what about the fact that they haven't got water? We get the list of the schools that need water from the Department of Education. We are the conduit to providing water. They are the people who indicate to us that these number of schools need water. Please supply the water to them. I would urge that this is so that she can then put it on our schedule and on our contract, that we can attend to it. We would not be able to provide water if there are no tanks. And where we've been given a list of schools where there are shortages and where we need to provide water, we have provided that. And I will put on the screen here a news item that emanates from an interview with the Minister of Education, where she says that 90% of the schools actually the entirety of the schools that she had asked to be supported by Water and Sanitation have been attended to. If she says that, I will take that as the agreement that we have with each other. On the matter of the Solplaatje housing situation, where the president chastised the mayor there, he was very right to chastise the mayor, because that is first and foremost the responsibility of the municipality to attend to those matters and make sure that they're budgeted for and they are planned. We will check, but the president expressed the views of everybody about the desperate situation that we found in the Northern Cape. Honourable Mtetwa, municipalities owing water boards. Honourable Mtetwa, if you can find a solution to this, I promise you a box of, oh no, whiskey is not possible. A box of chocolates, is that allowed, Honourable Chair?
Unless it's not bribery. Let's declare it.
we are owed a great deal of money. The totality of what we lose, either in water leaks or non-collection of revenue by the municipality, is in the region of 9.9 billion per year. That is far more than we can afford. And we're looking for solutions of this, and we're battling. Cutting the water is not an option because it is a right for every citizen to have access to water. But the collection rate of our municipalities is very low. And perhaps the NCOP can assist us find out from the municipalities what the problem is, and if we can all work at it together to make sure to us we're able to stretch the availability of water to every place that is possible. Then I'm not sure if I got the name right. Is it Baja, Honourable Chair?
It's Baja, yes.
Baja, yes. Then Baja wanted to know, what are we doing about the evictions in south of Johannesburg? How do we balance the two? We say that there should be no land invasion and there should be no evictions. When we say there should be no land invasion, it is actually that which we mean. And the responsibility of making sure that that happens is a law enforcement matter. It is in our regulations. Therefore, we expect that the law enforcers will make sure that any land that is on the cusp of being invaded is protected appropriately. Not only in this particular lockdown, not only do we have the police, we also have the capacity of the defense force that we can employ to make sure that if there is any threat to any land, we actually protect that land. We're working on this to make sure that we can put it into effect. But what we have done is make sure that we put it in regulation so that nobody can use their power to evict anybody. We're asking both the EFF and any other party, whether it is the ANC or any other party, please to spread this word. Invasions will not be tolerated in this lockdown because we have a plan to try and de-densify areas. We are coming to every area that is possible that we have identified. Invasion of land is illegal. But at the same time, once somebody is in their land, is in a house that has been put up, if there is any eviction necessary, the law enforcement agencies are required to approach the court to get permission to do something about that. They may not do what was done at Empolweni. On the matter of Empolweni, between ourselves and the Human Rights Commission, we have taken this on review to the courts. We've taken this matter to the court on review. This is a breach of human rights on a phenomenal level, and it will not be accepted. Magausi asked about Maluti Apofung, and we went to Maluti Apofung because we were informed there was a drought and there was a shutdown. When we got there, we provided that area through the CDBang Water Board with sufficient resources to be able to buy enough tanks to solve the problem of Maluti Apofung. We engaged the community and urged them to work with the Water Board to make sure that water is available to all. Beyond that, the municipality still remains a municipality responsible for the provision of water. If the tanks are stored in the houses of the councillors, I would be very grateful if Honourable Magausi can give us the details so that we can do something about it. My immediate suspicion is that they were possibly stored there because at the time that we rolled out the tanks, they might have been at the beginning of the lockdown and therefore had no access to the material needed to put them up. I'm not sure, but we'll investigate this matter if Honourable Makausi can give us the necessary details. Honourable Madiwane, I am surprised to see Honourable Madiwane at the NCOP when in fact he should be the one who is building houses for us. Is there any work to get into agreement with municipalities? Honourable Chair, perhaps Honourable Madiwane can educate us better. He's been working on these matters for me until I left, and I find him on the other end of the screen. He is very knowledgeable about this matter, and he can take time to brief all of us about what is happening to get an agreement with the municipalities and to work with the municipalities to do the work that needs to be done. Yes, in the matter of land, that is exactly what we're doing, and that's what Honourable Madiwane has been working on and can educate us on. Then he goes on to say that Butterworth is indeed a dry area. Is there any plan to get back to the old plan connecting Namakwe and etc.? Yes, in the master plan, which will be unveiled to you at an appropriate time, we have those plans and we will be able to drought. And Butterworth, the drought in Butterworth is made worse by the fact that all the drilling that we have done in Butterworth have resulted in no water. So the water, even the groundwater levels are very low. So we're not getting much luck. But through the system that we have adopted now of tankering, we're able to provide some relief for the people of Butterworth. Honourable Rider, security of tenure under threat, land invasion. I suggest that in that community where there is a possibility of land invasion, if this matter can be reported to the nearest police station so that the land is looked after, so that we stop these invasions. It is illegal to invade land. And he goes on to say that the Elandsfontein citizens are threatened by this eviction. We will send a team of people to that area, supported by you, Honourable Rider, so we can look into the matter and together with the law enforcement officers, see how we can stop this and protect the people of that area and their property. Honourable Kumalo, as we resettle people, do we resettle in foreigners? We resettle those foreigners that have refugee status because the courts have declared that they have some rights to the grant and all those social amenities that government gives to its own people. So we would be dealing with refugees, and we would want to see the refugee status in paper before we provide them with the necessary support. We haven't got to the point of actually identifying family by family in all of these areas because we did not want to create a threatening environment or a resistant environment because we're dealing with a pandemic. And so far we have not come across this situation on the waiting list. And people on the waiting list invariably are largely South Africans. But out of these informal settlements, we will also include people who are registered in our country as refugees. And the rest, we will still think about it and see what we are going to do about those foreigners who live there and do not have the necessary papers to be in the country. And you also ask about land grabs. The land grabs, we are requesting everybody to be on the alert and to inform us when there is a possibility so that we can protect that particular land. I come back again to Honourable Magause, who says that clean water is a dream. There's filthy drinking water. Honourable Magause, we provide the security of the water of the entire country, and we provide clean water for the entire country. The incidents that you're talking about, please get to the municipality and point this out to them. It is their responsibility to make sure that they can reach out to us. We are providing all our municipalities in line with their request with water tanks and clean water. So when you say our interventions are not working, I think you must have taken a holiday away from South Africa. Our interventions are working wonders, I can tell you, without sounding like I'm boasting. We work flat out every day, and the difference it has made to our people is phenomenal. We can see that, we can hear it from our people. This particular case that you're dealing with, please refer to the nearest municipality and see if they cannot register with us for us to provide them with the necessary water. And don't allow your own anger to spill over into what otherwise has been a working response to the pandemic. Honourable Dango wants to know about what we're doing about gentrification. I will leave that to one of my DDGs in human settlements. It is happening a great deal around the Western Cape, and we're very concerned about it. Honourable Zandamela says that there are shacks that are being demolished in the area that he refers to, and he wants to know who makes the decision that these are being demolished by the municipalities. Who makes the decision? We don't make the decision. The municipality has made the decision. And I have no idea what the basis of the decision is, because I did not get to hear where the area is that he is talking about. And then there is a question that was asked. I did not get the name of the person who asked the question, but it is about Nelson Mandela. And the question is...
Minister, sorry, Deputy Chairperson, the place is
Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela, can you allow me to chair this meeting? Honorable Nana asked some questions about Nelson Mandela, particularly with regards to the apparently approaching day zero. So it's Honorable Nana.
Okay. Honorable Nana, you are indicating that Nelson Mandela is gradually approaching day zero. We will attend to that on an emergency basis. The alternative for them would have been to ask for more water tanks, which they haven't, because as it has been indicated to you, we're working very directly with the municipalities. You also indicate that the canal is collapsing has been collapsing from 2018. We will check on that. Right now, what we were prepared to provide you with information on was the pandemic, not the general state of our water resources and the state of our rectification and all of that. But when the opportunity arises, we will do that after we've given you our master plan. But we will look into the matter of Nelson Mandela and what is happening to the canal that is collapsing, because we cannot have Nelson Mandela, a metro as big as Nelson Mandela, reaching day zero in this critical period. And you also were making some suggestions about Sunday's River. We've taken that suggestion. Then I think there were also questions by Honourable Fayela indicating taking water to schools with no water in community around schools is very problematic. I agree with you entirely. But in our choice, where we found communities who had no water, long before the issue of children going back to school, we had come to an agreement with the minister that the water tank would be put in a school. So most communities that are in need of water, where we have been supplying water tanks, we have chosen areas like either a chief's place, outside a chief's place, or just outside a school, or just outside a city hall, or just next to a taxi rank. So this we had taken into consideration. We will look at our map and see how in this particular case, the community that you might be talking about could have been missed. But the point is taken. We can't provide schools now with water when the community doesn't have water, and we will make sure that we can rectify that. Then we have been properly installed, no taps being put in properly. I think I indicated that there was a mismatch between our delivering of tanks and the lowering of the restriction in terms of the levels. Most of the warehouses were closed. They are now open. Or rather, the selling of cement and all of those things is now regulated. It is now available. And please, if you are in this particular environment, indicate to the municipality that they have a responsibility of mounting those tanks. We can't provide water to tanks that are not mounted. It would just not make sense. Therefore, we would like them to deal with that matter. Honourable Nita wants to know about land parcels in dense population. I'll leave that to my team to answer that. Any plans beyond the metros? There are plans. We have a great deal of projects. What we've been dealing with now is the pandemic. But when we come for a full-on presentation, we would like to separate the two, deal with human settlements and then deal with water, because the two of them put together would take 2 days or so to deal with. What we were concentrating on now was the pandemic. How are we helping deal with the matters that are necessary for people to adhere to the regulations of the pandemic as laid down by the WHO? And therefore, the land parcels and all of those places we will come back to, but we are using land parcels adjacent to the extent that it is possible, congested informal settlement, because we don't want to break up the bonds of communities that have developed together. Then there was a question from somebody about military veterans, especially in Limpopo. And the question goes on to say, in Mutsi, additional tanks are required. And Lepelle Water Board is, I wanted to say that we would check on this matter in Mutsi. I was in Mutsi. We left some water tanks there. And for some reason, the people of Mutsi didn't want to take our tanks. I discovered later by my own deduction that perhaps they associated this with some form of corruption, because before we took over as a command center, the delivery of tanks and tankering had become a very corruptive environment. And the people of Mutsi refused that we should leave tanks with them. But we can get back to that and see if there are more tanks there. And then Matebula also on Limpopo school program, please note that here we requested something or other. It has been noted because we have been noting all the matters that have been requests as opposed to questions, and that matter has been noted. Gillian, we are, what are we doing, Gillian, about what has happened with the eviction of people in the Western Cape? We've consulted with the Human Rights Commission, and we're taking the matter on review to the courts in the hope that we can restore the dignity of people whose houses are torn down in that particular matter. Chairperson, if there are any other questions that I may not have answered, we will certainly sit down, take copious notes of the questions that have been asked, and give written response.
Thank you very much, Minister. It will actually quite assist because we are now already progressed in terms of time, and there is still another session that we need to continue with. I also, Honourable Mutsamai, I think you can send your question to the Secretary, and we will make sure that it gets responded to also in a written fashion. For me now, it's to say thank you very much to us. Really express appreciation. I think you actually indicated that some of the questions cannot necessarily be responded to now because of the brief that you got with regards to the purpose of the meeting of today. So with that said and done, I will give over to Honourable Nyambi to continue chairing the engagement. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you to your team, all of them. Also,
thank you very much, Chairperson and to the NCOP.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. We're still continuing, Minister. Getting to the next session. Before we can get to the next session, probably to explain what has been said by the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and Honourable Totovo, that indeed we have lost MEC Kihakilwe from Northwest. But what is so positive, Minister, is that as early as last week, the MEC has sent the presentation for today's meeting. So out of what we have sent to members, the package from Northwest is with all of us. So it shows the level of commitment and how the MEC was taking NCOP as a very important house of parliament. Now, Minister, we're getting to the session where we'll be getting comments by MEC on progress made on provincial specific measures to provide water and sanitation, and also to address human settlement related challenges to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's strictly 7 minutes, Honourable MECs. You have been listening to the Minister doing a detailed presentation for almost all the provinces, and she was so detailed such that it touched what is happening in different municipalities and responded to questions. Without much ado, I'll start with the MEC of Eastern Cape. I'll be doing them in an alphabetical order. Eastern Cape, MEC.
Thank you, Honourable I don't know whether I have a problem with my video. Hello, Honourable Chair, am I audible?
It's not
Am
so
I
clear.
audible, Honourable Chair?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Nyambi. Good afternoon to the Chairperson and the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, the Honourable members of the NCOP and the guests to the NCOP, all the Honourable members, the Honourable Minister and the Honourable Deputy Ministers, and all the officials, those from national and from the province and from the NCOP. Let me greet you all. I join you to say, may the soul of our colleague, MEC from Northwest, may his soul rest in peace. But as the Eastern Cape Honourable Chair, let me start by saying the department is only dealing with human settlements. We're not a human settlements and water and sanitation department, but we are working with the Department of Culture, where the provincial manager for water and sanitation is reporting to. And also in this presentation is included the information that we received from them and also from the 2 metros. As you know, that the Eastern Cape is made up of 8 districts, 6 districts and 2 metros from national, and the acting DG have reported on that. Then can you go to the next slide? But it is part of the presentation also. Can we go to the next slide?
Don't forget, MEC, you've got 7 minutes.
Okay. As the province, we have managed to secure 1,800 TRUs for COVID-19 to respond to COVID-19, because we do have informal settlements that are dense in the other 6 districts. So this 1,800 is for the 6 districts, and we've allocated 300 in each district. And as Eastern Cape is a rural province, we have mud houses that are dilapidated. So those are also included in this. Can you go to the next slide? The informal settlements that we have identified, other than those that are in the metros, are in Lizana, local municipality, and its downtown, and the tanks have been delivered to that municipality. But for now, we do not have land that is available, which is Silver City, and tanks have been delivered, but the problem is the land issue in the two municipalities. And in OR Tambo, KSD, in those informal settlements, there is land that has been availed by the municipality, KSD. And also when we were looking at those that need to be relocated, there are 87 families that have been identified that are staying in Wanuku. And with the list that we have received from the municipality, those 87 have been approved for the top structure. And there is a project that is taking place in that area that is done, and those families will be included and get permanent houses. Under BSJ, also in OR Tambo, the green farm informal settlements, tanks have been delivered, but land is not yet confirmed by the municipality. The next slide. It's Muma municipality under Amatole, and we have those informal settlements in Amatole, that is Madiba, which are old and new. Tanks have been delivered, but land, we have not yet gotten any confirmation of land from the municipality. But we have provided TRU to other municipalities in Amatole, 32 for now, from Bashemuna, to give relief to those people that are staying in dilapidated structures. And in Goka municipality under Saraparnan, we have 4 informal settlements, and tanks have been delivered, and there is land that is available in that area. And also in Makana municipality under Saraparnan, there is 1,500 tanks have been delivered, and it is land that has been availed by the municipality. And in Inokundina under Kisani, Unit 86, we are dealing with the Zola, informal settlements, and tanks that water tanks have been delivered, and what land has been availed by the municipality. And in that area, there are 29 informal houses that went down, and we managed as of today to build 19, and some of the people that the 29 that I've mentioned and do not want to move from where they are residing and relocate to the new site that we have been given by the municipality. Under water facilities, those conversations, tanks have been delivered and land has been provided by the municipality. And the next slide is talking about the water provision, of which the department have already reported on that, but I will only say that out of the 5,684 water tanks that were planned, those that were also 5,684 were delivered. And out of that, 5,227 has been installed. And on water tankers, we, out of 115, that is 30 from rainwater, 85 from water WSA, and we have received those 115 tankers, but there's 52 tankers that were supposed to be provided by Amatola Water that are still on hold, but they will be deployed in due course to the relevant municipalities. By really in the province, and they were installed in 2 in Jokabi, 3 in Krisani, 3 in Amatole, and 2 in PCM. And hand sanitizers, buckets with hygiene materials, gloves, and so were distributed by DWS and NISA. And also 274 boats that have been drilled and are being equipped, and this will ensure that post-COVID-19 there is sustainability. As you know that when we were engulfed by the COVID-19, the province was dealing with drought. And the next slide is the water tanks and tankers as of the second. And the next slide also is the intervention that has been done in Nelson Mandela with the USDG that they've received from the National Department, and the acting DG have already reported about that. And also on the last slide, it's BCN, Honourable Chairperson. And I don't want to repeat that because acting DG have reported on the two metros. How did they spend the USDG that was allocated to them for, and also cater for COVID-19, but also as the province, we have 270 million that is set aside for the other year so that we deal with the issue of informal settlements once and for all as the province, but it's going to take almost 3 to 4 years to do that. But for this financial year, we are starting this financial year with a budget of 270. And let me thank you, Honourable Chairperson and the entire NCOP for allowing the Eastern Cape to come and present what we are doing in the COVID-19. But we are not only delivering or giving out temporary shelters, we have given to people 520 houses during this period, because we have houses that were completed before the lockdown, and when we at level 3, we managed to go out and also hand over houses to the beneficiaries as the Eastern Cape. Honourable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable MEC Peters. The next one is MEC Free State, Honourable Koloi.
Thank you very much, President. Let me also acknowledge the presence of the Honourable Minister, Deputy Ministers that are here, Honourable members, including the Chair and the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces.
Honourable MEC. Honourable MEC.
Aye, Chair.
We only allow, yes, we only allow where they're struggling with network. If you have got a network, let's see the face. When you've got a problem of network, then we can allow just to have the voice.
Am I now?
Continue, MEC.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Let me proceed with the presentation of the Free State. But upfront, Chairperson, let me welcome the presentation that has been made by the Department of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, and also acknowledge the strides and the intervention that had been made by Honourable Minister and her deputy ministers with regard to the interventions that they had made, in particular in the Free State. One will outline or be specific around the most challenging area in the Free State, that is Maluti Apofu. Honourable Minister, we'd like to thank you very much alongside with your deputy ministers with regard to the intervention on water distribution in Maluti Apofu. Chairperson, Free State Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation priorities as far as COVID-19 interventions have been on the following 3 focuses: access to water in priority in the informal settlements around water shortages. Like I had indicated earlier on, that we really like to thank the Department of Water and Sanitation as it has been championing around this matter. The following outstanding 2 focuses that has been the strides around the provincial government itself will be as follows. Human settlement focuses on fast-tracking the upgrading of informal settlement and also on the hygiene products. The Free State Department of Human Settlement is not densifying any of its formal settlements for purpose of COVID-19. For the purpose of COVID-19, the focus has been on the access to water, working in conjunction with the Department of Sanitation, like I had indicated, and the provision also of personal hygiene products to poor households. In an effort to facilitate social distancing, the department then resolved to fast-track the upgrading of informal settlements with an overflow of people to be relocated in another area. This overflow in an informal settlement post-completion of township establishment. In this case, Chairperson, where it was very critical and where the department attended to it as an immediate effect, it was in Thabo Mofusanyana, the township thereof being Harrismith, in Selahlwe, and in Tabasu, in Malatu Apufung, like I had indicated. Can you proceed? Now, I will not go to the report that has been presented by the minister. I will focus mainly on the hygiene products because I'll be making repetition, Honourable Chairperson. Now, around the hygiene products, the provincial department procured 20,000 bar soap, which were distributed around all the informal settlements. But let me also indicate that this process, it is an ongoing process. And subsequent to that, Chairperson, the department also attended to the issue of the sanitizers, also in the informal settlement. Let me indicate that within all the districts in the Free State. Now, when I go back or when I substantiate the focus that one had indicated around the upgrading of informal settlement, in particular, Selahlwe, in particular, Lindam Konto and Selahlwe. Let me indicate to the House Chairperson that Selahlwe is a formalized area. However, the area was densely populated because there were other occupants that occupied the land illegally. Then the department resolved on identifying such occupants based on the National Housing Needs Register. We then resolved as the department to relocate such beneficiaries or such occupants to another informal settlement that is called Lindam Konto in the same area of Harrismith. The department has attended to the matter with an immediate effect to ensure that it fast-track the upgrading of this particular informal settlement that one had alluded to. And let me indicate, Chairperson, that in the very same informal settlement that one has indicated, that is Lindam Konto, there were other households that were already occupying that particular inn, also by resettling them according to the layout plan, the initial layout plan. As I had indicated, that it is an ongoing process. And subsequent to that, Chair, let me also report to the House that the process of upgrading the informal settlements in the Free State province will be an ongoing process. Once we are done with Intabazwe, Lindam Kondo in particular, like I had indicated that we are going to upgrade that particular informal settlement. With the money or the budget that the department is sitting with, that will be fast-tracking the upgrading of such informal settlement. And the beneficiaries, Chairperson, like I had indicated, those will not be the foreign occupants. It will be the beneficiaries that are coming from the National Housing Needs Register. Thank you very much. I will not go back to the allocation of water tankers and the water tanks because the department had already reported earlier on. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, MEC Koloi. The next speaker is Honourable MEC Maile from Gauteng. MEC Maile.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. I also want to join comrades and colleagues in conveying our condolences to the former MEC of Copter in Northwest. May his soul rest in peace. We have submitted, Chairperson, our presentation. So I'll ask that the team in Parliament can project it there. But because we've got 7 minutes, Chair, I will try to do it in 6 minutes because most of the things that the minister was talking about, you will have seen. There's a lot of projects in Gauteng, especially on the human settlement issue, because you will know that our grant is coming from national. So whenever we do these things, we do them together with national. And that's why it will not make sense to repeat them. And if you go into the first slide there, the next slide, please, you will see these are the objectives that I will not go through, Chair, because the minister spoke about this at length on these issues in terms of what you need to do. The next slide is on the prioritized informal settlements. Most of them are there in that report as well, but you will see that in every municipality, we've identified specific ones, despite the fact that we've got about 740 informal settlements in Gauteng. And going forward, we plan to do at least about 6-7 projects financial year. These were a response, having worked on them with the national. The next slide, which is decongestion implementation status, you will see there that there's a plan of about 11,505 TRUs, and that in Mamelodi we have completed about 30, and that for the permanent units we're targeting 15,144, and the total that have been completed and ready for occupation is 2,949, and you will see how they are and all that. So you'll also see the type of structures we're putting in there, Chair. I will not take a lot of your time. And then we did thought it's important to brief the NCOP as well and the work we're doing in Alex, and you'll see it's detailed. One of the areas that over and above Alex, Chair, you will remember that the President made a commitment on the Alex renewal project, and there was an interministerial committee that was started, and then there was a statement of intent that was approved, or rather signed, before the previous elections. There we're giving you details in terms of what work has been taking place. For instance, you'll see there's issues of title deeds of owners which are uncontested. There's those that are still contested, and we're giving it details in terms of how we deal with it. There's issues of allocation of alternative stands within the vicinity of LX, and even with property owners around LX. The financial compensation for those who qualify, there's an issue there. We need something like 2 billion to be able to do that. And then the next slide, Chair, you'll see this is the water provision per municipality. It also shows you where we have distributed sanitization, and we're working on disinfecting informal settlements. And every city, you'll see, for instance, when you take Johannesburg, there's been about 46,000 liters of sanitizers that were distributed in LX. In Diepsloot, in terms of water storage, you will see that cumulatively, the Department of Water would have delivered about 1,723 of those, and installed about 1,730. But like I've said, those details, this is just further details. I wouldn't want to waste your time, because also in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable MEC Maile. KwaZulu Natal, Honourable MEC Nkonyeni.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Let me greet all leaders present, the Chairperson of the NCOP, the Deputy Chairperson, my Honourable Minister Sisulu, all Deputy Ministers, my colleagues, MECs from all provinces. Thank you very much to all honourable members of the NCOP who are present, by also expressing our deepest condolences to the province of the Northwest and to the family of the MC for Koka, who passed on yesterday. I'm expressing our condolences on behalf of the government of KwaZulu-Natal. Honourable Chairperson, we wish to express our gratitude to the Honourable Minister for a very comprehensive and a very well articulated presentation, which actually covered all of us, because what the Minister has presented is what we are currently doing in all provinces. But nevertheless, let me also indicate that in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we wish to indicate that the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has occasioned instant reaction, as demonstrated by the announcement made by the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, on the 15th of March 2020. And we're called upon to respond as a united nation to a common threat, and with solidarity, understanding, and compassion. And this is a call for collaboration with sector departments, with SOEs, civil society, and all our slum dwellers international, our SANCO, and we had to target all our informal settlements, our transit camps, and all our CRUs as the province. KZN has a combination of rural and urban settlements with a housing backlog estimated at over 700,000, according to the 2016 community survey. There is a high number of informal settlements surrounding primarily our economic hubs and also our secondary cities like your eThekwini Metro, Konyeni, Newcastle, Alfred Duma, Guza, Mhlatuze, and the Umsunduzi municipalities. Our province is prone to natural disasters. Heavy rainstorms have had a severe impact over the last 2 years. The department is currently implementing emergency by providing temporary residential accommodation and permanent units through the emergency housing program. Over 268,000 households are living in 732 informal settlements across the province, with 523 informal settlements being in the eThekwini Metro alone. What were our proposed and approved interventions? Let me deal with that, Honourable Chairperson. We embarked on a community-wide sanitization program. We also embarked on a community mobilization and community education campaigns, and we encouraged our people to pay more attention on their personal hygiene. And also with regards to water and sanitation augmentation program, we embarked on a community-wide sanitation program, as I've already indicated. Water in all areas in KwaZulu-Natal, and we also dealt with emergency housing needs, like we decided to pay more attention on those destitute communities, whereby we provided them with temporary residential units for the purpose of decanting those densely populated, and we are busy with land preparation so that we upgrade our informal settlements and also do the decanting where necessary. We have a number of informal settlements, as I already indicated. In eThekwini alone, there are 208,434 people who are residing in informal settlements. The mass sanitization program that we decided to embark upon has covered 105 informal settlements and 23 hostels, as they have been identified by our department. We decided to collaborate with and rural development as they are producing the technical support, and also as they are providing technical support and also producing chemicals. In KZN, we decided to utilize a chemical which is called a hydrogen peroxide, which is quite safe for our people. And the sanitization program commenced in April 2020, and 40 informal settlements have been sanitized. And we also distributed 91,000 in informal settlements for the purpose of encouraging our people to ensure that they embarking on hygiene, activities. We created a number of jobs through this sanitization program. About 150 local people have been employed through our EPWP approach. In phase 2, we do have a phase 2 intervention whereby the provincial hostels and additional informal settlements have been identified in various districts, whereby we will be continuing with our being provided with 1 liter disinfectant, all households. And this is done to ensure that households may continue disinfecting their own homes. And phase 2 commenced on the 28th of May 2020, whereby eThekwini, being the most populous area, has increased the provision of water and sanitation services to communities, and 297 water tanks have been installed in various areas, and 313 chemical toilets have also been installed, and construction of permanent houses is in progress in Kennedy Road, informal settlements, and this will assist in de-densifying that particular area. And Amawoti has been supplied this. Honourable Chairperson, I think Amawoti and Kennedy Road have been covered. We will proceed in whereby we will construct about 75 temporary residential units in order for us to unlock the space for delivery of an integrated frame of water, toilet, stormwater management, and also food parks to that particular area, local labor. We are intervening as the province, like we have law.
Round of MEC.
Oh, thank you very much. I think we do agree with everything that the minister has presented, and thank you very much, Stan.
Thank you, MEC Konyeni. Honourable MEC Makamo.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. The House Chairperson, the Deputy Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Ministers, fellow MECs, permanent delegates and special delegates, I greet you. First, before the presentation, on behalf of the province and the people of Limpopo, we want to send our condolences to the people of Northwest and the people of South Africa for the loss of our colleague, MEC for Coxstar in Northwest. We say the family should get the strength during these difficult times, and they should be able to be comforted by the words of God that this shall pass to end. I will want to take my presentation. I don't see it being shared, Chair, but I do have my hard copy. I don't know what, maybe the people in the parliament will be able to share my presentation.
Don't worry, they'll do that. You can continue with what you have in front of you, MEC.
Thanks very much. The first slide will be showing the geographical situation of the province. I'm doing this mainly because our province has got 2 categories of districts. The 4 districts, that is Waterberg, Mopani, Kukune, Capricorn, and Wembe, are water service authority, save for Waterberg district, where the locals are water authorities. So the map there just want to indicate the differentiation we have. The other issue is about the funding that we have as a province that will be able to be showing us how are we going to respond to the challenges during the COVID, but also beyond. We indicate the budget on the 3 categories mainly, which talks about the mining towns, which talks about the normal project allocation, which talks about the upgrading of informal settlement, which will be able to talk more about it. I should be able to talk that the presentation by the minister spoke much and even showed the pictures about what they are doing in terms of the issues of the services. As a province, we have got a quite number of informal settlements, which we regarded them as densely populated areas. About 8 to de-densify or dislocate about 2 of them. That is Talani in the Mopani district and the extension 10 in Begersford in the Watsivita local municipality.
In the Talani, we are going to relocate the families, and I think the presentation by the department showed that the project is now complete. It's ready to be handed over to the families that we have relocated. We can be able to say that the relocation which we did in Tsanin has got the water sanitation connected into the system, and the people are celebrating for the beggars for the extension 10, which is into Watikitahomu, which will be seen that we are relocating 152 households. We are busy doing the VIP toilets to each an individual household that we are giving, and we should be able to be completing the project the latest by the 20th of July this year. The other issue is what was spoken about in terms of water provision. The table there shows a number of tanks that we have received, which have been installed, and additional tanks that we have received, a number of them. I will not be talking to that because the president, safe to say that we also, in addition to that slide, we have received about 32 water tankers, which were distributed to our districts, which are augmenting what our water service authority has. So that slide shows how we received all the water tanks. The next slide will be showing those two areas that I spoke about, the Bakersford, the Talani, and the areas where we are, because with what the minister started about, we are able to track exactly where the tanks are, where the project. The last part in the slide talks about the mass sanitization, which is a challenge that we should be able to continue on the other informal settlements that we cannot be able to relocate, that we should be able. But I must indicate, Chair and the Minister, that we are still battling to get the funding properly for those mass sanitization of their own sanitization, and their congestion requires that we should be able to do that. We can go to the next slide. That is the slides which shows the completed residential units that we have done in Zanin Talani area. And thanks very much for the opportunity to say we are continuing with the work. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable MEC Makamu. The next speaker is Mpumalanga, Honourable MEC Mashango. Honourable Mashango.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, Minister for Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation, Madam Sisulu, members of the Executive Councils from provinces, Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. Masondo, Deputy Chair, Madam Lucas, Chief Whip of the NCOP members, Salga representative, special guest, good day. Chairperson, allow me to pass my heartfelt condolences to the family of the late MEC and the province of Northwest. Their loss is our loss. Chairperson, we are honored today as the Department of Human Settlements to give account on the progress made in responding to the novel coronavirus pandemic to this August House. Minister, your presence gives us courage as you always steer the department towards meeting the needs of our people. Honourable Chairperson, the Mpumalanga Department of Human Settlements will cover 3 areas emanating from COVID-19, which is integrated approach, construction of government subsidized houses, and provision of basic and bulk infrastructure. On integrated approach, the department made an assessment and validation of high-risk areas, mainly focusing on informal settlements. As common sense will dictate, some of these informal settlements lack access of water, sanitation, and refuse removal. I will go straight to the district where we are assisting as the department. You know that in Mpumalanga we've got only 3 districts. The first one is Nkangala, where we have 28 informal settlements with a 21,217 households. Followed by Hertzibande, we've got only 64 informal settlements with 37,993 households. And the last one is Ehlanzeni district with 85 informal settlement, 35,265 households. To this end, as presented by Minister Sisulu earlier on, the water and sanitation component of the department intervened by delivering water tankers and providing tanks to communities in need of such a service throughout the province. Honourable Chairperson, on construction level 3 lockdown, reopen all construction sites with strict adherence to COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Priority was given to houses at advanced stages of completion, informal settlements, upgrade projects, and emergence the spread of the pandemic. All contractors are required to appoint safety officer representative to ensure strict adherence to health and safety protocols, which include, amongst others, keeping safe and hygiene workspace, provision of sufficient quantities of hand sanitizer or washing soap and clean water. They also are required to conduct daily screening at workplace and provide personal protective equipment. This at least it's going to be the new normal henceforth. In order to ensure adequate shelter in informal settlement, a total of 1,882 housing units has been prioritized for completion in the 2020-2021 financial year. Further, the department continued to work closely with the local municipality, Department of COPTA, and the Department of Water and Sanitation to install JoJo tanks and address bulk infrastructure challenges through the various grants available at municipalities. In my budget vote recently, I announced that the department also prioritized sewer spillage intervention in affected areas while promoting hygiene conditions through the provision of bulk water and sanitation. To augment municipal capacity for the delivery of bulk water and sewer infrastructure projects, the following bulk infrastructure project will be delivered in Komati Port Extension 18, Kutuma, Rollenstone, Amsterdam, Mkondo, Vuguzake Bia, Dr. Pixley Isaka Seme, Paula Irake Malahleni, Gwazamuguhle, Extension 9 in Steve Twete, and Rondebosch Steve Twete. As I conclude, it that required the densification and or relocation to temporarily residential area in the province. We will welcome advices and better ways of ensuring that we deliver a service to our people effectively and safely during these trying times. Once again, we will continue to join hands in a bid to defeat the spread of COVID-19. By that, we encourage people and our contractors to sanitize, adhere to social distance and washing of hands regularly. Ngiyabonga, Chairperson.
MEC Mahlangu, I'm reliably informed that today it's your birthday. So happy birthday. Let the Almighty grant you many more happy years.
Happy birthday, Malibongwe. Kamala Makoskazi.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, MEC. The next speaker, the last time I asked the deputy chair about Northern Cape, they were still struggling with connection. I will go straight to, we're aware with the Northwest, we do have the presentation. The next speaker will be Western Cape, Honourable MEC Simas, Western Cape.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members of the NCOP. Good afternoon, Deputy Ministers, and also to our National Minister, once again from the Western Cape Provincial Department of Human Settlements. Let me thank you for affording us the opportunity to present to you today our contribution as the Human Settlements Department as part of our province's whole of government approach to how we are dealing with the COVID-19 through our interventions that we have focused on. Firstly, Chairperson, it should be noted that the Minister's Department has really done a very as presented and give a bit more detail, because I have noted some of the inputs and questions to the National Minister, but I think this will also expand and give clarity to some of the issues that were raised. Firstly, Chairperson, we need to understand that the Western Cape has a total of 763 informal settlements. 464 of these settlements are in our only metro, which is the city of Cape Town, and this is as per the 2019 data. But one would also need to understand that there has been various attempts of land invasions since then, so obviously there's also additional informal settlements that have been formed that are fairly young, and some of the 464 informal settlements are up to 30 years and older. In our non-metro areas, we have 299 informal settlements. Chairperson, is that we've seen rapid growth in informal settlements in areas like Katiwa, Kloof, in Overstrand, Neisner, Bay, but also in the city of Cape Town. And sometimes these new informal settlement expansions come at the expense of land that is and was earmarked for human settlement development in our current business plan that we signed off earlier on the year. Now, Chair, I will also focus on our budgetary contributions, focusing on the HSDG, which is focused on the informal settlement upgrade program. And from our perspective, there's 296.7 million earmarked for the non-metro areas in various categories. 70% of those funds are actually for category A. But then also in the city of Cape Town, we have 336 million rand for the current financial year earmarked. Once again, there are 24 settlements. And if you remember the previous slide, there's 464 informal settlements in the city of Cape Town. But our resources are finite, and we can only do what we can with the budget available in our envelope. So there are 19 projects in the city that fall under category A. There are 89% of the budget of 5 projects, or 268 million, is earmarked for category B1 upgrades. And in the city itself, there's 17 project-wide projects, which are 33.45 million rand. But Chair, as a department, we cannot do it alone. And the Minister has alluded to that we need to work in partnership with NGOs, because they engage these informal settlement communities more frequently than our department, even sometimes our local government sphere of government does. But there are, during the COVID period, which we have relied heavily on, is conflict mediation in certain communities, but also the need for community service and data collection, because informal settlements are not static. They are expanding on a monthly basis, as we all know. But with COVID-19, we also had to expand this framework to include janitorial services and the cleaning services, the sanitation and disinfecting services that's needed, raising awareness campaigns. Like I said, we have a whole of government approach in the Western Cape, monitoring and reporting of all levels of services are happening within these informal settlements. Food security advocacy is becoming a big issue in our informal settlements in the Western Cape, but also as part of our categorization of who we will target for reblocking is identifying the vulnerable inhabitants that live in these informal settlements. Chairperson, but what has our interventions been in the informal settlements as a department? From a basic services perspective, we assist water tanks are properly distributed across our province. This has been data backed, utilizing the 2019 report, which we obtained from the city, but also in the non-metro areas, data up until 2016. We have also been supporting municipalities with the relocation strategy and other technical matters within them, but also how we could find methods of accelerating informal settlement projects, more so COVID-19, which were in our business plan. So we've just needed to expedite that, but in the non-metro areas, we have started engaging them as well on projects that we could expedite very soon. Communication, what we've learned, is very key, and also engaging our stakeholders in our communities and community leadership structures, because we can't talk about projects in communities without including the communities in these discussions. Obviously, our resources are finite, so partnerships are crucial for us in the Western Cape, the spheres of governments, but also it's to monitor and report on the services that have been provided in this time. Our focus on reblocking during this period, because the Minister did announce 3 specific reblocking areas. We've done that in phases. Phase 1, it's where we have been focusing on how we could accelerate existing projects in the hotspot areas, which the Minister rightfully flagged on 28th of March. And we will set categories of people that will form part of our reblocking exercise. More so the vulnerable, because even the National Department of Health statistics show that our elderly and the most vulnerable are more susceptible to actually get COVID. Mostly are the Noon, Kosovo, and Itemba, and the problem that we have identified in Itemba is that it's still owned by the National Department of Public Works. We have yet to receive power of attorney via HDA to actually develop that specific area on our behalf. Chairperson, as you can see, we've distributed every tank that has been received from our national department, but our metro, the city of Cape Town, have gone above and beyond that to actually purchase an additional 93, because so that they can lower the ratio of people that actually have not been receiving these tanks. Obviously, they've been outside of the expansion rate, which is normally what happens in informal settlements. And Chairperson, one needs to clarify that, because sometimes this information causes a misperception of what is happening, not only in the city of Cape Town, but also in our non-metro areas. And finally, Chair, the issue of land invasion is a concern to us, because our land is being illegally invaded. That is earmarked for human settlements development in the city of Cape Town, but also in our non-metro areas. But we also are against the fact that people are being evicted in inhumane ways. That we cannot see, but we also need to respect the due processes to understand what happened.
Thank you, Honourable MEC. The next speaker is the Salga Representatives, Councillor Sotashe. Councillor Sotashe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for affording us an opportunity to come and address the NCOP. Chairperson, let me first acknowledge the Chairperson of the NCOP, the Deputy Chairperson, the Chief Whip of the NCOP, the House Chair of Committees and Oversight, honorable members of the NCOP, Minister of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, and the Deputy Ministers, special delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Ours today, Chairperson, is to reflect on the working relationship between ourselves as South African Local Government Association and also the Department of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation. Before we reflect on that, Chair, let's follow suit, expressing our sincere condolences to the family of the MEC of Northwest, and also the government of Northwest, and also the government of South Africa. This shall pass too, Chair. May his soul rest in peace. I must start by welcoming the ministers. I must start welcoming the minister's progress report regarding the department's response to COVID-19 pandemic. We have worked with you, Minister, and your department in various capacities and platforms in collective effort to respond to challenges relating to housing and water and sanitation. I can therefore attest to the energy that you and your team have demonstrated in the battle against this invisible enemy. Chairperson, the COVID-19 health protocols include coughing etiquettes, social distancing, and washing of hands with soap and water. The role of the department, together with municipalities, is crucial in the latter two protocols. Social distancing is one of the key interventions required in order to slow down the spread of the disease. We have acknowledged that the conditions under which some of our community members live, particularly those in the informal settlement, poses a risk for the pandemic. It would be almost impossible to observe social distancing in such communities. We have observed with interest the tireless efforts of speeding up the rollout of alternative housing opportunities to our people in these communities, which would help in reducing the undesirable densities and thus enabling social distancing. We commit our member municipalities to work with the department to ensure that these new communities are habitable. A key contribution that municipalities are required to do is to process applications for township establishment where appropriate. We commit to work with the department to facilitate these applications, whilst also pursuing the alignment with the municipal plans. We acknowledge that municipalities will continue to play a critical role in ensuring the delivery of basic services, especially water to those communities. It is therefore critical that our plans are aligned. It has been exciting to note the innovation, alternative technologies that have been used in the delivery of housing opportunities during this period. This has enabled the increase in the space of delivery, and we anticipate that it will make a major dent in the informal settlement upgrading program. We have further noted the consultative manner in which many of these have been delivered, where local government, through ward councillors, have played an active role in the identification and signing off of some of these housing types. We would like to implore the minister to keep this integrated consultative approach. Lessons from these experiences will go a long way in developing a delivery model where councillors play a key role in facilitating community engagement in buy-ins. By extension, it would also go a long way in facilitating the integration of the needs of the new communities, such as linkages to bulk infrastructure into plans of municipalities. The active engagement of communities builds active citizenry and civic pride. This will be further built onto by localization of housing delivery. The flexibility to utilize alternative and innovative technologies that are suitable for various localities increase the prospects also of including local entrepreneurs in delivery value chain. This will in turn facilitate job creation and the building of capital within the respective communities, while also leaving skills that will be utilized for longer after the completion of the housing units. On water and sanitation, Chair, another key element in the fight against this pandemic is the hand hygiene practices, which include washing of hands. In order to achieve this objective, we need water. It is worth noting that the recent non-financial report by State highlights an increase of 3.1% of number of consumers units receiving water and 3.6% on sanitation respectively. These milestones suggest that municipalities have been hard at work in ensuring access to quality water and sanitation to South Africans. Notwithstanding these achievements, COVID-19 has forced us to accelerate the provision of water, and particularly to vulnerable groups. Since the pronouncement of the disaster in March, municipalities have been working harder at providing water, particularly for vulnerable communities. They have collaborated with Department of Water and Sanitation, water boards, and stakeholders through the National Department, the National Water and Sanitation Command Center. We can report that since 28 March 2020 to June, this collaborative effort has delivered a total of 740 million liters of water to needy communities to help them to fight COVID-19. We acknowledge that these efforts may not have been reached everyone, and that municipalities should strive to put more resources to achieve universal coverage, and that's protect the interests of vulnerable communities. Moving into the future, sustainable of water provision beyond COVID-19 will be of paramount importance. To this end, we have been engaging with the department.
As you conclude, Councillor Sotashe, try to conclude.
Yes, Chair. In pursuing the development of sustainable plan beyond COVID-19. As I conclude, Honourable Chair, we wish to applaud the department for a job well done thus far. COVID-19 has brought all spheres of government much closer to working collaboratively in pursuit of a better South Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Councillor Sotashe. Honourable members, allow me now to invite Minister of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, the Honourable Minister Sisulu, to do her concluding remarks. Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister Sisulu. Mr. Zama.
Chairperson, the minister is back on chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As I said, now we invite Minister of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, the Honourable Minister Sisulu, to do her concluding remarks. Honourable Minister Sisulu.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I start off with expressing our greatest condolences, regret at the passing away of a very passionate Human Settlements MEC for Northwest, and we are hoping to get in touch with his family and the province to see how we can be of any assistance to him. He was passionate about this area of work that we are dealing with, and I hope that whatever we do going forward will represent his passion fully. I want to thank the MECs who are with us here, who have contributed significantly to what they're doing in their various provinces. We have regular consultation with them, and we hope that we can consolidate our plans and move forward despite the pandemic, which has weighed very heavily on us. I'd like to thank my two deputy ministers. I don't know if they're here with us, who have been holding fort in various provinces of Free State, where we've had problems with water before. And I thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the Chair of the NCOP for the graceful introduction that he made. And we would like to thank Honourable Lucas. She's also extremely passionate about this area, and she supports us greatly. And the members who have posed questions to us. On my screen, I have all the questions that have been asked, and I will download them, and we will respond to them in full, Chair, and send them over to you for circulation. But I think that the MECs have done exceedingly well in their presentation.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I can confirm that both the deputy ministers are part of this very important session, as we have also acknowledged them. Thank you, Honourable Minister Sisulu. The Chief Whip of the National Council of Provinces, Honourable Mohai, is the one that will do a vote of thanks on behalf of all of us. Honourable Chief Whip Mohai.
Thank you very much, House Chair, Honourable Nyambe, and also recognize the Chair of the Council and the Deputy Chair. Indeed, this brings us to the conclusion of this important session of the ministerial briefing on the acceleration of the provision of decent human settlement, water and sanitation to our communities during this critical time of COVID-19 pandemic. We say critical because decent housing, water and sanitation are at the core of the prevention of the scourge of COVID-19 pandemic. This scourge, all of us agree, has laid bare the deepening triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality that continue to define relations in our democratic society. These challenges continue to impose immense pressure on the state to provide for the poor, the working class, and the vulnerable, especially during this pandemic. I'm sure that Honourable Minister and Honourable members will agree that to the extent that we do not address these challenges, the more democracy loses meaning to the majority of our people, as it has happened at each turn of a crisis in human history. The failure of the state, business, and society to speedily and effectively respond to the miseries of the people always produces and legitimizes anarchists and populists of all shades, both in the state and society. It is for this reason, House Chair, that we recognize the ministry's persistent presence on the ground to engage our people on the medium and long-term solutions to their challenges. The point should, however, be made, Honourable Minister, that the department must rise to the challenge of bringing every sector to the party. It is something else for the department to provide infrastructure both in the medium and long term for the benefit of our people, and another thing as to how is that infrastructure going to be protected and sustained by municipalities, provincial government, and our local communities. As a house that is located at the cutting edge of intergovernmental relations and cooperative governance, we will continue to explore how we infuse in our ongoing engagements with ministers an element where we create a meaningful dialogue, as we have started with provinces and local government on their challenges, concrete plans and capacity to sustain national government intervention and support. Honourable Minister, we agree with you that this briefing was and is mainly focused on the immediate and medium-term measures and interventions to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, we would agree that there is a linkage between broader policy trajectory of government and the crisis and beyond. We welcome your note, Minister, when you said you will come back to the NCOP and discuss these broader plans. On this note, allow me, Honourable House Chair, to thank Minister Sisulu, Deputy Minister Mafrobo, and Deputy Minister Chwete, MECs, special delegates, SALGA, permanent delegates to the NCOP. Of course, also we need to extend our hand to the all the media houses and the officials that help to that accompany the minister, help to present this report. Very useful tools that we use in our oversight work has been presented today. And once again, we thank you, Minister Sisulu, for tabling these reports to the NCOP, which will be more meaningful in our oversight work. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Honorable members, colleagues, Minister, Deputy Ministers, Chair of the NCOP, as per the plan, we were supposed to finish at 2:00. I can confirm now that the time is 2:00. The meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.
Amanda,
Thank